Investing in the 30s. Actually, I should have called this starting investing in your 30s. Ideally, you should start investing at 24, 25. But well, you didn't. You got some friendly uncle who asked you to put in one LIC endowment plan. You put something there, you put something in PPF, and willy-nilly you reach 32 years of age and you don't have any investment plan or anything. And welcome to India. This is the age at which anyway people start, because 32 is the time when you realize you're no longer in your 30s. It takes 2 years for that hangover of the 20s to go away. And that's the stage when people start investing. So also it's the time when maybe you're 32, you just had your first kid, and suddenly realization dawned that oh my God, I don't have insurance, I have no plan, my provident fund nominee is still my mom, and these kind of realizations hit you. So you're 32 and you're just about to start investing. Remember that when a person, I'm not digressing, but when a person is say 37, 38 and he is hit with say cancer, the first thought that comes to his or her mind is, oh my God, I wish I had more medical and term insurance. Because once you are hit by cancer, you cannot get medical insurance, you cannot get term insurance for the rest of your life, right? So don't make that mistake. You're 32, you're very healthy, you're in good shape. So make your first move, get adequate term insurance. What you think is adequate, if it is 3 crores, that's great. Then add 50 lakhs to it just in case, because it's still not going to be very expensive. Similarly, get a sensible, comprehensive medical insurance. I'm not saying how much, but get some basic cover, get a top up, get a super top up, keep that in place. Make sure that you have your medical insurance over and above what your company gives. What your company gives is great, but have your own for yourself and for your wife. You can't get too much insurance for a little baby, but once the baby is a little bigger, 1 year, 2 years old, that kid can also get an insurance. Believe me, the kid needs very little insurance. You're only talking of accident kind of a thing, right? So you don't really need too much insurance for the kid, but for you and your wife, or if you're a woman watching this, for you and your husband, please take time off, understand how much term insurance and medical insurance you need, take it. Now that we have done with that, let us talk of another very important thing called documentation. If you and your husband have bought a real piece of real estate, or you've inherited a piece of real estate, make sure that you write a will. A will is important not because you have too much money, but because you have real estate. Your mutual fund, insurance, banking, everything will move with nomination. It's not so much of a problem, but your house will not move without a will properly made. You get enough lawyers who will help you do this. It doesn't cost you more than 10,000 rupees. It is worth doing. So having kept insurance away, having kept the documentation away, do the nominations properly. If your mother is the nominee in your provident fund, etc., change it to your spouse. You may not have done that because you got married, you were busy, you didn't realize that this was important. But if your mother dies and after that you die, your wife will be running pillar to post, not being able to get it. True for men and true for women. That is actually, there's not too much difference between men and women investing post marriage. Pre-marriage there is some difference. We're not talking about that today. Having done the insurance bit, the documentation bit, let us now come to investments. Yes, you have to invest. There is absolutely no doubt. You are perhaps 5-7 years late, so the power of compounding is going to be less. But remember, you have got another at least 30 years to go, right? So hopefully in another 30 years, our retirement age might be also increased. So you may have more than 30, but you have at least 30 years to go if you start at the age of 32. So largely you didn't know how to invest, you didn't know that investments are important, etc. So you've got into a stage where you have come here, but that's fine. But also remember that 30s is a very eventful time, because maybe you got married at 30, maybe you have a kid at 32, maybe you'll have another kid when you're 34, 35. If you're a man, if you're a woman, you could reduce 4 or 5 years. Unfortunately, in India, not enough statistics is available to say at what age, on an average, what age people get married, but that's not matter. It doesn't matter. You're at that age, and this is an important decade. 30 to 40 is a very important decade. This is the time when people get married, have babies, and mostly commit for a house. They could have committed when they're 29, but on an average 30 to 40 is the time when people commit to these things. So having all this and also preparing for retirement, because you're going to retire at 55, 60, whatever, or maybe even earlier, you need to plan for all that. You have to have a strategic plan for retirement, saying where I'm going to put the money. You have to have a written down investment plan. Maybe you have a written down retirement plan, which is part of your investment plan. So all this will be the documentation. Now you have to start investing. You do not know how much, I'm assuming that your parents paid for your marriage expenses and honeymoon and things like that, and so I'm not talking about that. If you're not married and you're planning to get married and spend your own money, remember a big chunk of your investment stroke saving will go there, and for heaven's sake, don't borrow. And I know people who have borrowed for their weddings. I am anti-borrowing for expenses, but having said that, I am talking from a very comfortable position. If you must borrow, remember that also happens in your 30s. So your 30s is a time when you're repaying loans, maybe student loans, maybe marriage loans, maybe a housing EMI, maybe a housing EMI for your parents. Your parents are living in a house which you bought, and now you have, let's say you're from Hyderabad, you bought a 1 BHK or bought a 2 BHK, and your parents were living with you, and now you have a job in Bombay, and you need to buy a house in Bombay. That will be the second house that you buy, right? So planning for all this is something which will happen in your 30s. So now sit down and make your goals. Take care of your immediate family needs, of your own needs. Make sure that you're saving for the future and plan for big events. Big events now might mean in your 20s it could have meant your marriage and having a baby. In your 30s it could mean children's education and your own retirement. I mean, I do not know of anything else, but yeah, it could be even events like taking a foreign trip and all that. So write down all those things, write down your goals, identify your goals, right? You Can Be Rich Too is a book which is on completely goal setting, and why at least I feel, and my co-author Pattabhiraman feels, that all investment has to be goal oriented, and one goal could be wealth creation. All your goals are met, then you do wealth creation. There's nothing wrong, but at least you should know that this investment is for wealth creation, this investment is for my daughter's education, this is for my son's education, this is for buying a dispensary for my son in case he does his MBBS or he wants to practice as a doctor, right? So deciding where to put the money, that is goal setting. Important goals have to be accommodated first, and then things like buying real estate for your kids may not be in your priority at all, but it could be there. So do all those things, and by the time, so what happens is also in your 20s, maybe you did not need a financial advisor, but in your 30s you need a financial advisor, because your life is going to get very complicated. So you want to invest in a large cap fund, mid cap fund, small cap fund. These are words which you hear, you do not know how to invest. You have downloaded some app, and that app tells you can do a SIP for 5 years. And here in Subramani, I tell you have to do SIP for 30 years. So how do you do that? So please go to a financial advisor. Make sure that you're all both on the same page. Your tuning is perfect, right? You may not feel very comfortable wading through the financial mess that our generation has created. So financial advisor should be able to help you. Use a financial advisor according to your capability. You cannot afford a fee only financial planner if you're going to do a 30, 40, 50,000 per month kind of a investment. But if you have 50 lakhs already invested, then maybe a fee only planner might be interested and might quote you a fee which is worthwhile, because till I think in my head the break even is something like 1.5 crores of assets. Beyond that only you should look for a fee only advisor. Till then the regular distributor helps. So where all should you be investing? Largely you should be investing in equities. You should be building an emergency fund, and you should be creating your retirement plan. You should be sitting with your spouse and discussing who is going to be the primary provider and who will the other person be there to look after the kids. I mean, mostly it is the woman who does that, but if the woman is earning much more money, maybe it's time for the husband to be playing that role. So discuss all these things. Investments we will see perhaps in a separate video as to how a person in the 30s to 40s should be investing, depending on your risk tolerance. So in your 30s to 40s, how much should you be investing? Very difficult to say, depending if you're staying with your parents and there is no housing EMI. Obviously you will be able to invest more, but if you are paying either an EMI or you're paying rent, your ability to invest to that extent goes down. But yes, there is a table in my book which tells you that at least 30% of your money will now have to be invested, out of which 10% will go towards your retirement, and another 20% will go towards your other goals, and you have to learn to live on less if you can't get even 30% invested. Remember, 30s to 40s is a time when there is pulling on all sides for your time, for your attention, for your money, etc. Right? Your parents are getting older, your kids are young and they are jumping around, they need help, and so your time is going to be torn. So you might choose that one person works and one person stays at home. So making that transition, all that is going to happen. But it's a great time to be starting to invest if you have not already started in your 20s. And yes, you should be largely in equities, except for strategically keeping some money which you might need for an emergency. So build an emergency fund first, then start doing an SIP. Go and meet an advisor. Assuming that you have not yet started an SIP, sit with him, discuss your goals, see which is possible, which is not possible. If you arrive at, say, 16% or 17% return is what you will require in equity to achieve your goals, then maybe you should downsize your goals, or you should downsize your investments into debt assets. Find out what is to be done. This is not going to be very simple. So your first meeting might last half an hour, but your first investment might happen after 3-4 meetings of deciding on which goal is achievable, which goal is not achievable, which goal is priority, which is not priority, what will you do if you drop dead, does your wife have all the passwords, etc. Right? So all these things which are absolutely what you think non-financial, which means non-check writing, all that is important. Sit with this guy and make sure you talk about all this, and then you can get into how much should be in large cap, how much should be in mid cap, how much should be in small cap, how much in debt funds, how much in PPF, right? All that can be discussed. Please understand, between husband and wife and 2 children, you can put about 3 lakhs into PPF. That's not a small amount, right? So then you may not need too much of debt funds. Then there is NPS also. Some people might start putting in NPS. So there could be a debt portion in the NPS. So which means largely when you're looking for equity, but sit with your risk tolerance questionnaire. Ideally start, if you're going to invest in direct equity, ideally write your own philosophy statement. It's there, a copy of that is there in my book. I think it's there on my blog, subramani.com also. So understand all that, make your investment plan, maintain your investment diary, start doing your investments. When your financial advisor says something, play it back to him, write it down, so that tomorrow if he contradicts, you know that you have to change your financial planner. Or if he's willing to admit, saying, oh, I made a mistake, then it's a great guy, because admitting mistakes to me is a great thing in the advisory profession, right? So if somebody is doing that, that's very good. So check out all this. You are in your 30s, you're ready to invest, you know where to invest, you have an advisor telling you where to invest. Just get going. Thank you.